Alrighty, let's get a couple other videos done today. I have to get started with my test day videos, so let's do a test day video. This probably isn't the first one I'm going to be able to post, but let me describe part of the process of test day, the minimum and maximum lists. Now every section, every club, every province works a little differently this way, but it's generally expected that before test day, let's say 4 weeks before test day, all the coaches submit a list of possible tests they think might be able to pass by the time test day, or they might want to have taken by test day. So that the people organizing the test day can make sure they have the judges that can judge those tests, check with the judges, make sure that they're available, check with the ice time, make sure they have enough ice time, various other, start to get the paperwork together, things like that. The minimum list happens about 2 weeks before test day, generally, and it's the list of final tests that at this point the tests can't be changed, and you shouldn't be adding new tests in at this list. You should have already added everything possible in on the maximum list, so this is just stripping down the tests that didn't get ready or didn't improve enough to be able to be taken. The general formula they use is, I think the minimum list is supposed to be about 70% as big as the maximum list, but there can be they've started a thing in Nova Scotia lately where they want the maximum list 2 months ahead of time and the minimum list 1 month ahead of time. So 2 months ahead of time, how are we supposed to know it's going to be ready to test in 2 months? There's no way. So we end up throwing in a lot of extra tests that are clearly not ready, but we can't add them in later, so we have to add them in now. And then we take basically, I know coaches that have taken 100% all their tests out by the minimum list because, none of the stuff they hoped would happen happened. None of the progress they thought might happen happened. When parents hear about this, they get a little bit confused and think that a maximum list is something that we put in that's ready or that should be ready by test day. That's not at all the case. And then they get a little irritated when we take the list out for the minimum list. This is not at all how the list is supposed to be worked. This is basically the maximum list is if you have a test that by some miracle, or if they suddenly grasp concepts that they weren't grasping, or if they suddenly get a bunch of extra ice or a bunch of extra lessons, or miraculous things happen, you have to put it in on the maximum list just in case. But there's really no realistic expectation that that's going to be taken on the minimum list. So it gets taken out. I mean, essentially it was never in. We just have to put it in because we can't add it in later. I know in Labrador I was told by several parents, and I think the test chair at one test day, to not tell parents what was on the maximum list and not tell kids, because they would just get upset when I pulled the test on the minimum list. Like they would take it as a personal insult that they hadn't been able to get something ready that should have been ready. Like I get their hopes up when I put it in on the maximum list, and then I take it off and dash their hopes. That's crazy. That's not the purpose of the lists at all. Just because I put something on the maximum list, it doesn't mean, oh, I've gotten better. And then when I take it off, oh, I haven't gotten better. That's way over-reading the meaning of the lists to the point of insanity. Generally, and the parents, I suspect, get more angry than the kids. The kids generally know exactly the status of their tests. I will tell them, I'm going to put this test in, and it's pretty good. If I had to decide today, I would still leave it in. Then they can get upset if I pull it out. Although, not really at me. They should be getting upset at themselves for not keeping my corrections, or listening to my corrections, or maintaining the test, or improving the test, or whatever it was that they needed to do that I clearly state, essentially in every lesson. Then there's the odd test where I'm like, well, this is improving regularly. I put it in now. If it keeps improving the way it is, it'll still be in 2 weeks. Great. That's a lot of assumptions, though. And then there's tests where I say, okay, I'm going to put this in. Would never pass now. Would never pass. We got to fix 3 or 4 major errors, a bunch of minor errors. The quality has to go way up, and then we'll see in 2 weeks. So I have some very stubborn kids that if I tell them that, will actually work their butts off to try to fix every single error and make sure it stays in, and they would succeed more often than not. But there are kids who get really complacent when I put it on the maximum list and don't really do anything to improve it. And then when it comes out, they seem shocked. And I don't know why you're shocked. You really had made no effort to improve that test. Anyway, this isn't about the kids. It is, but this isn't neither list is a statement of how good the kid is or how much they've improved. You can improve a ton and not take a test. And you can improve not at all and take a test and pass it. That seems counterintuitive, I guess, to skaters, but I know if you are with a coach that has a really high test standard, and you get up to a certain level, and you switch coaches to somebody who has a much lower test level, you're suddenly going to be able to take a few more tests and pass them based on what the quality you already had with your previous coach. This is one of the benefits of having a high test standard. So you can actually take, I've seen kids, and I've had kids leave me and fire other coaches that were very, very good, go to another coach, get worse, and for about 6 months of the year, maybe 2 years, continue to pass tests. So continue to have the illusion that they're improving when they're actually getting worse, and then hit a block and stop improving. And either stay there forever or slog through it really slowly at 1/10 their normal rate, or whatever. As I said, my preferred method is complete honesty and openness. As far as tests, I like to actually publicly publish to all the parents what their maximum tests are and what might stand and what might, and then kind of update them as I go. I prefer to just update the kids. I don't understand why I have to go and have this conversation multiple times. The kids should know exactly what's happening if they're listening to me in lessons and paying attention, and they should be able to transfer that to their parents. But I don't really trust that, so I occasionally, every 4th or 5th alteration in plans, I'll email the parents or talk to the parents when they're at the rink, or after a good day, I'll make a brief mention to the parents of what's going on. In Labrador, I had a great system, which I would love to do here, where I had a whiteboard where on the maximum list I was writing down everyone's tests, and the process would be that from the time I wrote it down, I would check it basically 3 times. And if I checked it twice, if 2 of the times I checked it consecutively it was not passable, I would cross it off. And eventually, I would just cross it off. So they knew it was in, now it's not in. And it would be visible to them, it would be visible to everyone else, and you'd think people would get really upset, and parents occasionally did. I only had one kid in like 3 years of doing this that got upset. But by the end, there were a whole bunch of crossed out tests, so it was pretty much even across the board. And then the other rule was, I think what would happen is if I checked it once and it was passable, I would underline it. If I checked it a second time, I would finish the underline into a box, and at that point it's in to test. So from day to day, every lesson, the kids can kind of look at the board and chart their own progress. And often in the lesson I would say, okay, let's go to the board. You failed to do this, X. You did this really well, underline. Let's go over, you have 2 tests left to do. Here's what you need to do, let's do it. And by the end, I would essentially I could have, if I had YouTube channels or Twitter or whatever, I could have just taken a photo of the, I guess it would be Instagram now, take a photo of the whiteboard and submit that to the test chair. By the way, to the test chair, oh, never mind, that'll be another video. Anything else? Personally, I loved the openness and honesty and truth in the whiteboard. I really wish that I could make things more public like that in Halifax, in Metro, but I have a feeling it would not fly here. I think other coaches would use it as a method to pick on me, pick on my methods, and I think parents would, and kids would be a little more, because not only, in Labrador they're mostly my students, so the feedback was always internal within my community of my skating parents, my skaters. In Halifax, there's no club I work in where the majority of the students are mine. So not only would this information be displayed publicly for my own students, my own skating parents, but would be displayed for other coaches and other coaches' students and other coaches' parents, which happened a bit in Labrador, but I think making that more public, essentially, makes it also more sensitive. So I've never done that here, but I do it through private emails. Anyway, so that's the maximum minimum list and my take on it. We currently have a minimum list due in about 2 weeks. I've kind of been updating parents as I went on what the status of their tests are in kids. Currently, you know, I have about 20 tests on the maximum list, maybe 25 tests with my students. Currently, I have maybe 5 that are going to stay in, but some of them I haven't checked, and I have 2 weeks left to confirm the rest. So we'll see. I'm hoping to get each of my 9 students in for at least 1 test, but I can see, well, one's not at test day, so I guess 8 of my 9 students, I can see there being a couple students that might not be able to get everything ready to my satisfaction, which I guess I'll have to define in a later update as well. So that's my first test day vlog. Minimum and maximum lists, what they mean, how they're handled, how I view them,